Tamaravavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Om Bolo Sadguru Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Bolo Swami Vishnudevananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Namah Shivaya. So good evening to everyone. And we welcome all those that arrived today to the ashram. And especially we'd like to welcome those who are here joining us for the family week with some of the kids that arrived. How many kids are here tonight? If kids can raise your hands. Now, kids means below 60. Okay, very good. So nice to see. I think we are expecting, or we have about 14 kids as part of our beautiful Thanksgiving family week. So we're very okay. Kids, you can drop your hands now. Very good. So they are not lacking the energy, that's for sure. So we're very grateful to have everybody joining us at the ashram for the special week of Thanksgiving. And this is truly a wonderful opportunity to focus and develop one of the most important yogic practices, which is the practice of giving thanks, or the practice of gratitude. And the practice of gratitude, as we all know, is quite of a mainstream practice. Many people are in the habit of keeping gratitude journals. How many people here already practice? Okay, Narani, very good. So, that's very good. One saint on the platform. So it is quite of a well-known practice to use a gratitude journal. As we know that the practice of gratitude is a primary practice of positive thinking, to be able to be grateful, as we would say, to be able to count our blessings and to learn to look at the cup half full instead of the tendency of looking in a negative way towards life and looking in a complaining way towards life. We know that positive thinking is at the very root of, in the practice of gratitude is at the very root of positive thinking. And in yoga, a practice of gratitude is of great, great importance. The yogis teach that this practice of gratitude in reality is much more than just ordinary positive thinking. And the yogis are truly masters in the field of positive thinking. They understand positive thinking on the deepest level. See, for us, many times there are certain things that look as positive thinking, but actually if we look a little bit deeper, we will see that that which appears to be positive turns to be quite negative, if we just give it a little bit more time. But the yogis are the ones who really understand what positive thinking is, and they really understand positive thinking on the long run. They're able to see really what those thoughts and that direction of the mind, where it's truly going to lead to. Because for us, many times, things that appear to be positive are like taking a nice ride with a nice view, but then there is like a cliff about to happen. And it's a nice view for a while, but then we fall down a cliff. So it's not the best thing if that is the end result. So the yogis really teach us how to understand positive thinking properly, and they teach us that gratitude, which is really a practice of ultimate positive thinking, is a practice where we learn to recognize a divinity in our life. The practice of gratitude truly is the practice where we're learning to recognize grace, amazing grace. This practice of gratitude is all about learning to recognize the divine manifesting in our life. That actually, that our life is full of blessings. This is what gratitude helps us to develop. The capacity to recognize that divinity is there moment by moment in our life. And usually all negative thinking is a result of not recognizing that. Fear, jealousy, depression, worries, stress, all these different types of mental afflictions have to do with lack of recognition. Not recognizing that actually everything is blessed, that actually everything is grace, that we are actually always supported, that actually love is there behind all experiences. So when we are practicing gratitude, it's not an ordinary practice. It's really a practice where we are learning to recognize that divinity is there in our life, moment by moment. That is the practice. It's really a practice of learning to recognize God is there. Now, the yogis teach that all positive thinking is the result of that recognition. All positive thinking is truly based in the ability to recognize grace. And all negative thinking is coming from this lack of recognition. So really, what the yogis are encouraging us to learn to recognize that gratitude should be our inherent and continuous attitude towards life. That if we want to be happy, which we all want, this is the type of attitude that is required from us. To learn to be ever grateful. When to be grateful? Always, at all times. Sunny day, rainy day. Food with too much salt, too much sugar. You know, whatever happens, to learn to be grateful. This is the secret. Now, what the yogis teach, that obviously we want to be in that type of a state, but that type of a state will not fall from the sky. That type of a state is something that needs to be developed. We understand that this is where we are aiming towards. We also need to stand practically, how do we make the shift from wherever our mind is now, a mind that is stressed, a mind that is anxious, a mind that is depressed, a mind that is angry, a mind that is jealous, a mind that is dejected, a mind that is always worried. How do we make the shift to a mind that is ever grateful? So the yogis give us methods to do that. And today, we'll be able to share, we'll see how much time, we'll be able to share 5 main methods of how to make that shift from, Swami Sivananda says, from being a person who is ever miserable to a person who is ever joyful. Through this cultivation of gratitude. So how do we do it? We have to learn to put the gratitude into main aspects of our life. Things that we know that we're going to be encountering and facing, and learn to inject gratitude into those things. To shift our mind from taking it as something that is obvious, something that is ordinary, into something that is very sacred and special. This is what the practice that we're doing. So these are 5 main ways of how to become an embodiment of gratitude. The first 3 are relatively easy, and the other 2 are gradually becoming more advanced. So the first one, that is the key thing to be grateful for, the most essential moment of the day to be very, very grateful. You know which moment is that?
When you wake up.
When you wake up. Exactly. The first thing that we should be grateful for is when we wake up, even if it's at 4:30. There may be a tendency for the mind to say, oh my God, I was hoping I have 1 more hour. Or maybe we were hoping that the bell ringer also fell asleep that day. No. The yogis teach the main thing to be grateful, the primary thing to be grateful, is when we wake up. This is the time that determines the whole day. Meaning, we need to learn to recognize the greatest gift of all. the gift of human life, the gift that we received one more day. Swami Vishnudevananda had a very close friend, Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, and he used to teach that every night when we go to sleep, the soul goes to this heavenly court. And there is a heavenly prosecutor and a heavenly protector, how do you say, the lawyer, the defense lawyer. And they have this big debate. Should we send him or her for another day on earth? And if we wake up in the morning, we won the court case. That is a sign that it's not randomly. God has given us another day. So Rabbi used to say, you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, you see your wife is there, okay. And then he says, you jump out of bed and say, I'm alive. And that is and he used to do that. I wake him up a few times in ashram in New York, and you knock on the door, and he would just pick his head out of the bed, and his hair was standing like this. And he'd say, hello, I'm alive. Like that. So the idea is that the first and the primary way to infuse our mind with gratitude is to be grateful for life. And every day, that primary moment that we received another day, that's a main way to start making a shift towards gratitude. So this is the first one. And it's not an easy one, but extremely powerful. But it's relatively easy to develop the habit to wake up, and that the mind will be grateful as we wake up, any time of the day. Then, this is the first one. Second one is what is also something that we do every day, and usually it's quite a pleasurable thing. Eating, exactly. So, to learn to bring gratitude into the meals. This is relatively easy, especially here at the ashram with such wonderful food, such wonderful cooks. Let's give a big hand for the cooks today. I think they're working very hard. So, to make sure, this is a main spiritual practice, not to take the food for granted, and to transform the whole act of eating to an act of gratitude. If we can, of course, the least we give thanks before we start the meal. If we can, a more advanced practice is to try to maintain the appreciation with every bite. With every bite to be grateful. This will transform the whole act of eating into not just a pleasurable thing, but to a great spiritual nourishment when we eat with gratitude. So this is how we start. We may be upset, agitated, miserable, but then when we come to the food, we have an opportunity to make that shift, to bring back gratitude, to bring back the recognition that God is there, that love is there, that we are blessed. So when we eat. Then the third thing, what is another thing that at least when we are at the ashram, we are doing every day?
Meditate.
When we meditate, meaning when we do spiritual practice. When we do any type of spiritual practice, this is a primary time to bring gratitude into our life. First of all, from the simple reason that recognizing that this is the utmost gift. After the fact that we are alive in the morning, the fact that we have an opportunity to do something that will take us back to the source. To do something that will take us back to real happiness. This should never ever be taken for granted. We should always give thanks to our teachers, give thanks that this knowledge is there in our life, that we have an opportunity to practice. And if anybody has any times issues with feeling that the practice is mechanical or that we find it difficult to be inspired in the practice, gratitude is the main thing that will make our practice ever alive, ever inspired, ever enthusiastic. When we really understand, okay, now I have the opportunity to sit and meditate, this is the greatest gift. If we can really remember what it contains. If I have an opportunity to chant Jaya Ganesha again, morning and evening, then, you see, anybody who has been in staff for a while, people many times ask, how is it possible to chant Jaya Ganesha? Maybe you can change the chants a little bit. Anybody who's been for a staff for a while knows the Jaya Ganesha just becomes better and better over time. We don't want to compare it to wine because this is not the same. It is a much more uplifting. So, meaning gradually, as we become more spiritually mature, what grows within us is appreciation for the right things. And all spiritual practice becomes much more alive and inspired. Even though we may be doing the same thing, it's not the same thing at all. It becomes much more meaningful and much more powerful. Actually, you get uplifted much more, faster. Even just the first Jaya Ganesha already lifts you up. You don't have to wait until the Om Namah Shivaya part. And I think you're already so uplifted just by your enthusiasm about it. You have to wait another 20 years, you will see how it uplifts you more and more and more. So, the third one is to bring gratitude into our spiritual practice. Very important for the quality of the practice, and every time that we practice, another opportunity for gratitude. So these are the first three. They are relatively more simple, easy. Fourth one is also not too difficult, but not so always inherent within us. But the fourth one is to give gratitude when we have an opportunity to serve. So when we have an opportunity to help another person, to do something for another person, to be sincerely grateful for the opportunity. And our life is full of interactions with others. Our life will be full of situations where people will ask from us things, and we may not be so, it was not our plan to do that, or we didn't plan now needing to help this person. We had many other plans, a whole day, a whole weekend was planned, and now a situation came up and somebody needs some help, or something happened and somebody needs your time and energy. This is a great opportunity for real, sincere gratitude. Now, what will help us to be grateful in those situations when we are actually helping others? They're not helping us, but we are doing something for them, and for us to be very grateful towards them. How can we be so grateful in those situations? What will make us be down on our knees, thanking them again and again for helping us, for giving us an opportunity to wash their dishes, to clean after them.
Recognize the divinity in them?
Recognizing what?
The divinity.
Recognizing the divinity in them, this is true.
You're doing it for yourself.
Eh?
You're doing it for them, but it's for you also.
Very good. And what will help us really be grateful is our understanding that we are the ones who benefit the most from it. Meaning that we're understanding that this situation is actually bringing us to real happiness. Real happiness means when the heart and mind are pure. When we're able to let go of selfish desires, selfish agenda, then real happiness comes from within. So you see, gratitude is always based on recognizing value of something. No, when somebody gives you a gift that is very beneficial for you, you're naturally grateful. Somebody gives you something that you don't really need, you already have 10 copies of that book. Then you give like a thank you, but you're not so grateful inside because you don't really need it so much. But when something that you really need, you will be naturally very grateful. So what will make us really be grateful when we serve others? because we understand that this is the main thing that we need. There's nothing that we need more than purifying our heart, because that's where real happiness will come from. So then, if we are able to keep that understanding, we will be very grateful when we have an opportunity to give of ourselves, to become more selfless. Then we will be very, very grateful for the opportunity. So that was the fourth one. Now, the fifth one, this is we call more advanced gratitude. The fifth one is the capacity to be grateful when. When do you think?
Everything's
When
terrible.
difficult things happen.
When difficult things happen. So the capacity to be grateful when what we experience is things that are unpleasant. When the things are very challenging. When somebody offends us. When somebody betrays us. When somebody does something that is very disappointing for us. When somebody does wrong to us. At that time, to be able to be grateful. And this is what we call advanced gratitude. Now, why should we be grateful at that time? How can that make sense to be grateful?
Because you learn from...
You learn from it. This is a teaching. As Swami Shivananda was the greatest example of that. When he was attacked by a person at the ashram who was mentally disturbed, came with an axe on his head, and then they took him to the jail. What did Swami Shivananda do? He went and worshipped him. Why? Because he recognized that this was God coming to test. Meaning that this was God's love, God's grace, manifesting in that way, helping to move towards the self. Meaning that, you see, God's grace is always there. But what does grace mean? Grace means that which supports us to move towards reality. Blessing is not necessarily pleasant. Blessing is designed to help us move towards real happiness, the recognition of who we are. So sometimes it may be pleasant, many times it may be quite unpleasant. But unpleasant doesn't mean that it's not very valuable and beneficial for us. It is taking us to a greater fulfillment, to a greater form of happiness. So, to be grateful at that time is really the secret of true positive thinking. Positive thinking that is unshaken. A positive thinking that is not dependent on having a sunny day. Positive thinking that is unconditional, which is inherent in each and every one of us, but without the capacity to understand life experiences, it's impossible to reach it. So gratitude is really a practice that is there to help us grow in wisdom, to see that behind all events and all experiences, only ultimate goodness is there. But we need to train ourselves to start seeing it. Swami Shivananda used to explain, every morning he would go into the ice-cold Ganga, and he would, in the ice-cold water, he would meditate, and then he would wait. When there would be the sunrise, he would worship the sun, he would worship the Himalayas, he would worship the Ganga. He would see God in all these very beautiful forms that are very easy to see God. It's quite easy to be inspired by the Himalayas. It's quite easy to be inspired by the sunrise and by the beautiful Ganga. But what he explained, that every day, him seeing and honoring God in those beautiful forms gave him the capacity to see God in somebody who criticizes him, to see God in somebody that offends him, to see God in difficult situations. Why? Because he trained himself to see God in things that are more obvious and clear. So in the same way, if we learn to give gratitude in the meal, if we learn to give gratitude when we practice, if we learn to say thank you, just in simple situations, gradually we will be able to see that what we are receiving all the time is there all the time. Whether we like it or don't like it, it's all blessings. But we need to train ourselves to be able to see it. And when we can see it, we will be free. If we cannot see it, we are ever afflicted. Because things will come in all different shapes and forms. And that's unavoidable. But behind all shapes and forms, it's always, always grace. That's the only thing that is actually there. And gratitude is the way to see it and recognize it. Om Tat Sat. So, what are the 5 things?
Wake up.
Wake up,
Eating.
eating,
Meditate. Spiritual practice.
Okay, that was pretty much good. That was good. We are grateful for that. Okay, so here we will conclude for today.